Hello, I'm Moira O'Neill, editor of MoneyWise, and today I'm having coffee with the Share Centre. Andy Parsons is head of investment research. Can we start by thinking about why we should start investing? There are oodles of reasons, but what is the main one?
You're right, Moira, there are a vast number of reasons. But I think more importantly, what we've got to appreciate is we are living longer. And therefore, as we're living longer, our needs need to be supplemented, whether that's through healthcare, longevity of life. We've also got our family, our children to support, because it's not as easy for them nowadays. They may need help with the housing market, they may be going to university. So therefore, we've got to supplement how we look after ourselves and how we afford to meet those needs.
But should we put our cash in the bank? I mean, a lot of people do that and feel good about it, but why should we actually think about investing in the stock market?
You're right, the stock market is riskier than cash deposits. But when we do look at the stock market, there are a variety of investments that investors could go into, and each of those carries a differing and varying degree of risk. And therefore, you've got to apportion that to the risk that you're prepared to take.
Some people might be worried that they put their money into the stock market and it dives the next day and they'll lose everything and it feels like gambling. What would you say to someone who's worried about that?
That's understandable, but what you have to try and take out of it is the irrational decision making. Because when you're investing, always remember the goal that you're investing for. So if you're investing for a timeline of 10 to 15 years down the line, you will through that time see volatility in the markets, and you shouldn't suddenly react just because the market drops 5–10%, because over the longer term you're hoping it will come back to you, and it should do in most cases.
So you should have some ups and downs and bumps along the way, but if you're investing for the long term, things will generally work out. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes. And the best way to go about that and to not try and worry about it is to invest maybe on a regular contribution, say pound cost averaging. So paying in money on a monthly period. And therefore what you're doing is you're buying at the highs and you're buying at the lows, because you can never time the stock market. So therefore over time it should smooth itself out and it will work to your benefit. People
might think that they need thousands and thousands of pounds to get started. How much would you need to put aside every month? What would be the minimum?
I would always say you can only invest as much as you can afford and as much as you can afford to lose potentially, because it is a risky area. But more importantly, start very small, because if you're new and you're inexperienced to the stock market, it's not worth putting in a big lump sum and suddenly realising that the market may go down and fearing and have that fear of how much you've lost. But by starting to put little amounts in, from little amounts, grow big trees.
Andy, what's your absolute top tip for a beginner?
Can I give you two top tips if I may?
Absolutely.
Right, the first one is many of the providers out there offer what's known as a practice account. And simply what a practice account does is you're using like a fantasy money. So you pick your investments, you set your portfolio up and you let it run as though it was your real own money. It goes up, it goes down, but what importantly about it is that it gives you the real feel and flavour of how the stock market works. So you can see the positives, you can see the negative downturns, and therefore it starts to allow you to become comfortable with the underlying investments. And if something starts to be too volatile for you, then that's mostly telling you that investment in real life is not appropriate for you.
So it's like playing a game. It sounds like a really good way of getting an introduction to the stock market.
Yes, definitely. I mean, many people could mostly compare it to sort of fantasy football manager, because it is fantasy money.
Great. What's your other tip, Andy?
Well, the second tip would be something what was known as stop losses. And what a stop loss is there for is to help protect you on the downside. So we appreciate the stock markets can go down as well as up, and therefore you starting to appreciate the amount of loss you're prepared to take. So when you're paying in for the first time, let's say £100, if you're only prepared to lose 10% or 15%, you would set the limit at 10 to 15%. And therefore, if the price came down to 10, 15 or even further, it would automatically trigger the sale. And therefore you have some assurance that you're out of the market.
So if I had my £100 and I was putting it into the investment and the market halved the next week, so I was thinking, oh no, I've only got £50 left. If I was using this stop loss, I would still have £90. Is that right?
If you've set it at 10%, it would have triggered it. Now, if it's full, it may have triggered out at slightly just a little bit below that because it's when it goes straight through that price. But what it does, it gives you that air of protection. You feel a little bit more comfortable. You'll be able to sleep at night because you're a little bit more rest assured about what's happening. But I think they're very good. And normally you can start to play with them and start to go onto the websites. There's some very good educational material showing you how these mechanisms work.
Okay, so it sounds complicated, but it's not as daunting as it seems.
Definitely not.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you.